good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the weekly huddle. We are ready to kick off another great episode of our Thursday Energizer. And today I have the pleasure to have with me two great minds, Adam Doyle, head of platform at LexisNexis Risk Solutions, and John Chyriwsky. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. You will probably correct me later, head of marketing at Fincore. So Adam, John, welcome. Before we kickstart, I would like to ask you guys to just give a short introduction of yourselves and your companies. And of course, John, please pronounce your surname.
Well, it's been said many ways over the years, and I've seen it even said as John Christmas once upon a time.
John Christmas, wow.
It's the actual way to say it is Chyriwsky, but
Chyriwsky, okay.
Unusual spelling, but it was a good effort. So, well, tell you a little bit about Fincore. We're a company that's been around for quite a while, and we create innovative software and technology for helping sports betting, iGaming, lottery operators really unlock their full potential. We've got offices located in London and Belgrade, and we've got a team of about 300 professionals with a really significant depth of industry expertise and amazing technological know-how. So they absolutely love a challenge. Any problem, we give them, they thrive on that, and they always find a way to get things done. And we're really excited at the moment because we're just about to launch early next year our Tree platform, which is our new range of our universe of modular software that's got a full sports betting, sportsbook, remote gaming server, player account management system, payments, biometrics, the works. So we've had customers on parts of it for a while, but we're really excited to get it out there.
Wow, that's a lot. Congrats. Adam.
Good morning. Yeah, so I've worked in sort of the identity verification space and the gambling market now for probably just over 15 years. I work at LexisNexis. We are an identity management business. I specifically head up the gambling side on the risk narrative platform. And what we really specialize in, it's a single SaaS platform that gives businesses the ability to access data globally, using a lot of our own data, but many of our partners, and really making sure that operators align with the regulation and requirements that are in all these different jurisdictions in different states, and ensuring that, one, their players are onboarded frictionlessly, but obviously, and what we talk about today with responsible gambling, ensuring that the players aren't doing more than what they should be and causing any harm to them and their family.
All right. So before we dive into the responsible gaming and facial recognition industry, technology industry, let's comment the news, because there were plenty of headlines this week up until Wednesday. So I think the biggest breaking news was the stand down of Entain Group CEO, and as you all know, Entain, the global sports betting and gaming group, has announced that their CEO, another hard name to pronounce yet, Nygard Andersen, has informed the board that she wishes to stand down from the group with immediate effect. And the board has asked Stella David, currently non-executive director, to become CEO on an interim basis. And Stella will start this week and will remain in role until permanent replacement has been found. This is some major news, especially since Entain have been in the headlines for the past weeks with the bribery stuff and many other bad news. So my question for you guys is, how do you think this sudden departure of the CEO and the appointment of Stella David as the interim CEO will impact the company's strategy and stakeholder confidence, especially in the current global business environment? So, John.
Yeah, look, people changes, even in these really top roles, they're just a fact of business life. I think the key thing is to have a really clear long-term strategy and appoint people that can help you deliver it. With Stella David, she's already been at Entain for 3 years. So what they've got there is consistency. I wouldn't expect any significant change to Entain's strategy, but that might change once they appoint a new permanent CEO. And I think ultimately the judge of stakeholder confidence will depend on whether successful execution of their strategy is delivered or not. And I apologize for this in advance, but no doubt Entain will be hoping she does a stellar job.
All right. That's a good one. Adam.
Yeah, I think I checked the stock price just before going to bed last night, and it was up just over 5%. So I think generally the market seems to be positive in the change that's happened, and still got belief in the business. The business is a huge company that's it's always seems very safe and stable. They've always been focused on very much around the regulated markets, which I think is always positive for an operator, because again, it's a lot of assurity that it gives the the stakeholders in the business, because they're not sort of playing in markets which might be a little bit more dubious. And a bit like John said, I wouldn't expect any significant changes to be carried out until there's a new full-time CEO that's been put in place. But again, it's a business that delivers good numbers year on year.
Exactly. So, wow, today is the day when the hard pronunciation can be declared, because the next title we are going to comment is the Spielemyndigheten, the Danish gambling authority, who launched a new campaign to remind the under-80s of the consequences of gambling. This comes in the particular topic we're discussing today. So they launched a nationwide initiative targeting young people under the age of 18 that focuses on consequences associated with gambling. And one of the reasons for this is the need for early intervention, despite the fact that most types of gambling are not allowed for adults over the 18. So the vast majority of gambling products are now allowed for adults over the age of 18. However, the study by the Danish Gambling Authority shows that 15% of young people between the ages of 15 and 17 have gambled online in the past year. So, in addition, a clear trend in inquiries to the Danish Gambling Authority helpline, the Stop Spillet, shows the vast majority of people with gambling problems make their gambling debut before the age of 25. So, the question for you guys is, in the light of the Danish regulator initiative to educate under-80s on the gambling risk, what are your views on the effectiveness of such campaigns in curbing underage gambling, and how authorities balance prevention with the rights of legal adult gamblers? John, you can start.
Sure. Look, in my view, prohibition never works 100%. There'll always be some people, and in this case, it's under-18s that try to get around the rules. I think I remember a long time ago now, but I do remember trying to sneak into nightclubs with a dodgy ID, right? And people are always going to do that. So I think education is a really important part of a more holistic approach to prevent people from developing gambling problems. And that applies at any age, right? Not just under-18s. But I think the Danish authority have identified a particular risk here, and they're approaching it in a very sincere way. I think the success of it will depend on if they can get their messages across in a way that these minors can relate to, that, it's speaking their language. I think that's going to be massively important. And it is interesting, the balance between prevention and the rights of legal adult gamblers. I think ultimately it's in everyone's interest to educate and help people to have a healthy mindset when it comes to gambling, so that when they're the appropriate age, and if they want to gamble, people can enjoy it sensibly as a form of entertainment. And I think that's good for everyone.
All right. Adam?
Yeah, I think this will actually become common practice. And I honestly think it's something that we might see in the school curriculum in, the coming years. When you go in, school these days, I know for all of us, it was probably a long time ago, but I remember they used to talk about drinking, the effects and stuff like that. So, to John's point, gambling is, it's an entertainment business. And most of the people use it are using it for that purposes. But we also know from seeing different people's patterns and behaviors that if they're not fully monitored, there's players that can be impacted significantly in a negative way. So I think educating children on gambling, explaining the challenges of what it can cause and the effects that it can have on people, not just them, but also their families. I think implementing this will, in 10 years' time, we'll be able to look at those 15, 16, 17-year-olds. And, I think there's other things about gambling more where people are 25, 26 with the issues. In 10 years' time, hopefully it allows us to see that gambling harm is reduced even further than what we've been seeing lately.
All right. So we will also talk about drinking. Campaigns against drinking for underage. because the Australian Liquor and Gambling NSW launched a new compliance campaign. It is a seasonal compliance campaign which targets the under 80s who are illegally gambling and drinking in casinos and other associated hospitality venues. So the compliance blitz comes as new penalties are introduced, which will be the first time seen any under 18-year-old who is caught in a casino faces a fine up to $2,200 and a 12-month ban or more on the loss of any winnings. So my question is that considering these new compliance measures and penalties that are introduced in Australia to deter underage gambling and drinking, how do you perceive the effectiveness of these stringent regulations, and what implications might they have for young people and in gaming and hospitality industries? Again,
I think,
John.
sorry. Yeah, I thought we mix it up a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Adam.
No, I was going to say, it was a bit what John touched on before. I think this really demonstrates the need for proper verification tools in establishments like land-based casinos, hotels, bars, whatever that might be. As I mentioned before, I've worked in this space for over 15 years now, and identifying fake documents, it's very challenging. The people who work at airports, they've had over 14 weeks of training, so they're feeling it, they're touching it. So these people that are working in registrations in casinos, hotels, they can't identify them. So, I think this has really shown that casinos are needing to implement proper document verifications where it can identify and show all the information. And then also it gives you the ability to further track people once they're in the casinos to make sure that, they're not going above and beyond their means. So hopefully this is something which is going to make sure that there's a lot of people doing the right stuff in the online place, but hopefully it makes the sort of stuff happen in the land-based too and improve their regulations and processes. All
right, John?
Well, I mean, firstly, wow, they're not messing about with those fines. Given it's already, illegal for under 18s to gamble and drink, that's not new. What's interesting here really is this targeting children or under 18s that are attempting it. And I would really question the effectiveness of that. For example, if a 16-year-old gets caught, how are they going to pay a $2,000 fine? In my experience, where people don't have the money to pay fines, it just becomes meaningless. But time will tell on that one. And I think, as Adam said, really there's a big onus here on the operator to ensure that their staff have the right training, the right technology and processes to support them in preventing children from entering the casino or from buying a drink. And I think that's a key part of solving it.
Since you mentioned the 16-year-old, it actually, the next news we are commenting is the Preston Hotel, also in Australia, being fined for underage gambling in Victoria. And it's about a 16-year-old who has been given access to betting terminals and has gambled at the hotel on 6 occasions between May and September 2022. And now the magistrate has ordered the Preston Hotel to pay a fine of $25,000, allowing underage gambling. And this is something that sets a precedence, because there are further 8 venues who will face court in a future date after being charged in September 2023. So it seems that Australia is cracking down on underage gambling, and they are doing it very aggressively. So question for you both again, what with the Preston Hotel's recent fine for allowing minors to gamble, what message does this send on to the gambling industry about the responsibility in preventing underage gambling, and how might this impact future regulatory actions and again industry practices? Adam?
Yeah, I think one of the things which you have with Australia as well, is the layout for how they have the likes of these casinos and slot things there. In the UK, you don't really have them where be sort of in hotels, or you have to go through a reception area. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges for them, having someone there to monitor people. A bit like we talked before, it's about putting proper processes in. But the one thing which I'd definitely say over the last sort of 3 to 6 months, it's something where I probably had more conversations with land-based establishments than I've had in the 15 years that I've been doing this. So I think it's definitely something where they're seeing the things in the press is probably challenges that they're having themselves. You know, if you think of it in sort of the UK when the Grand National's on and stuff like that, if there's loads of people in there and you haven't got a lot of staff, it's very hard to monitor this. So I think it's really sort of pushing towards that. There needs to be forms of verification built into these sort of slots, into these land-based machines, where if it's a fallback, if it's not getting picked up by the people that are monitoring, it's a fallback. And I think this is what it's really driving people, that if they don't do this, they're going to be continuously hit by these significant fines.
All right, Joe.
And I think to build on that point, you know, there is the technology there today to take action on this. And, you know, all right, you're not necessarily going to make the business more people intensive to make sure you can catch minors going in, but it's about being smarter and getting the right technology solution in there that can help staff recognize that a person might be underage.
But facial recognition can do
like facial recognition.
Exactly. All right, so let's dive into the topic then, because these were the topics, the news lines we have commented today. So my first question is for John in regards to facial recognition. So how does the gambling industry address the ethical and privacy concerns surrounding the use of facial recognition technology? And what measures are in place to protect customers' personal data?
I don't think it's just an issue for the gambling industry. We're going to see facial recognition technology everywhere. And to an extent, we already do. You know, there's a reasonable chance this morning you unlocked your phone using your face. Well, exactly. That's using facial recognition technology. So it's the job of governments and regulatory bodies in different regions and countries to put the right regulations and frameworks in place. And it's our job at a company like Fincore to create and build solutions for operators that fulfill those regulations.
Okay, so
what I would add to that is as well that modern solutions, such as the Fincore solution, they don't require any personal data to be recorded, not even the face. So instead of using sort of human understandable tokens like a first name or a last name, we use unique IDs and we tag, you know, person categories, such as you can tag someone as excluded or self-excluded, for example, or underage. You know, and that information about detected faces is held within a database as per the regulatory laws of whatever region you're operating in.
All right. So basically now facial recognition technology is only used in land-based casinos.
Well, I think right now, but there is opportunity to use it. You know, you can use it anywhere there's a camera effectively, right? So I think going forward, and it's one of the things we'll get to, is, you know, how can we use it to provide more security online? So, for example, we talked about phones and two-factor authentication. So, you know, that's an example of good use of facial recognition technology. And you can use that online on gambling sites to provide an extra layer of security for customers. You know, if they're going to go on to place a bet on their phone or their laptop, can you recognize their face to make sure it's the actual account holder that's placing a bet?
All right. So, and in what ways has this facial recognition technology improved the security measures and regulatory compliance within casinos and maybe some other gambling establishments?
Well, I think to mention one of our earlier topics around underage gamblers, you know, it can be used positively to identify and verify age or exclusion restrictions for people visiting a casino. And it can do that by a cross comparison of documents. So, for example, at Fincore, we built an app for scanning US driver's licenses. And, you know, when that's integrated with our facial recognition platform, you can have a situation where you can check the live face of the person visiting against the image on the ID, and then the ID can check versus the database of US driver licenses. So you've got almost like that triple check to make sure that it's the right ID, it's the right person on the ID, and it's the right person stood in front of the camera. So that's very difficult to get around. You know, so that certainly can be used to help improve security and protection for operators against those sorts of fines. But I think use cases go way beyond that. You know, our platforms multi-channel notification system that we can integrate into our tree software or easily integrate it into an operator's existing platform. And when that's combined with a sort of really rich rules engine, which we have, it means operators can be notified in real time about any events occurring on any of their properties or systems, whatever the location or frequency of visits, if someone's visiting multiple locations, across multiple sites. And you can set it to take predefined actions, such as preventing excluded or self-excluded players from entering a premise, or even locking unmanned betting machines if someone excluded stands in front of the machine. Or in retail, it can help impose limit stakes on anonymous betting machines to ensure people can't spend or can only spend in line with regulations.
All right. So talking about limits, I would like to ask Adam about how can people set gambling limits and stick to them during the holidays, especially since they're spending more time online or maybe having more time off from work, spend them the time spent on gambling probably.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that we've really seen over the last sort of 12 to 24 months, especially with the UK sort of consultation document coming out. There's so many tools out there now. When you go to most gambling operators' sites, they've got the tools where you can set budgets, you can set losses, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly. We work with operators and you can build in systems which just make sure people aren't playing outside their means. So as well as players monitoring themselves, operators are doing this. There's also documents out there, expense tracking documents. You can create these yourself, so you can go on the likes of Gambling Aware and other sites where you can take these documents and you can log what you spend, because sometimes when you go on a gambling site, for example, like on Boxing Day, there's loads of different sports on. You'll be placing some bets and then you might not realize that you might have spent 100, 200 euros. And then the next day you check your bank statement and you're like, wow, when did that happen? So, we are seeing people who are using the likes of these documents, something which I suppose it's like it's retail, it's anything online. If you don't physically part with cash, you don't actually track how much you've spent. So there's these sort of documents, which I think can be quite handy. And to your point, especially around Christmas where, budgets are tight as it is.
All right. And are there some warning signals that someone might be gambling too much during the holidays?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's hard because we all know around Christmas when you might be spending time with family that you're not particularly fond with. There's you might be snappy and short with them at the best of times anyway. So it's typical things, isn't it? It's people might sort of being a bit drawn back from everyone, not spending time with the family, being a lot more focused on their mobiles and the laptops. Maybe when people are asking what they're doing, a bit short and snappy about why you're asking me what's doing. It's just, I suppose, being aware, keeping on top of things, and it's hard to identify the difference between, is it just because it's a big family period and people can get a bit tired and grumpy of eating a bit too much. So it's getting the fine line of not being on top of people and accusing them of having a gambling issue when they've actually just spent a little bit too much time with their brothers or sisters. So it's
All right. So I just wish that we are the ones who are talking about these signs about gambling problems during the holidays. Probably I don't think that the alcohol industry are having such discussions or the food industry are having such discussions before the holidays to mark out if somebody has some drinking problems or eating too much.
Well, they're definitely not talking about us all putting an extra half a stone on and worrying about how we're shifting it in January, are they? So
exactly. So we are the responsible ones, not the villains like some of the audience points out sometimes. So, John, back to you. How does the implementation of facial recognition technology affect the customer experience in the gambling industry? And maybe could you give some examples of positive and negative ones?
Yeah, sure. And I think there's a lot of positives here. There's a big drive in the industry to create a more personalized experience with tailored content, make less steps for the player to get to what they really want. And up to now, it's been impossible to do that in retail. But the combination of real-time data and facial recognition is a game changer in that space. We've just signed a world's first deal with US focused operator SB22 to integrate our facial recognition solution into their anonymous sports betting kiosks. So in addition to all the benefits of the safer gambling things we've talked about, it'll help SB22 understand their retail customers better, because they're able to collect data, see the patterns of their customers, see what they're interested in, and enhance the customer experience. So I think if you can collect the same type of data you would be with a logged in player, then you're going to have a lot more information as an operator, how to improve the experience for your customers. And I think we touched on it earlier, on the safer gambling side, you can provide an extra level of protection for players, for staff, operators. It can protect everyone, and not just from harmful gambling behavior. You can use biometrics to provide that extra layer of security through two-factor authentication to make sure it's the right person logging on the right device.
All right. So Adam, back to you, and just want to ask, maybe John, you can also jump on this. What are some of the resources available for people who are struggling with responsible gambling?
Yeah, there's quite a few different ones, and there's different angles that go out. So you have some which are bank blocking. So this can be you notifying your bank and sort of blocking any payments to any gambling sites. There's obviously a lot of self-exclusion sites going around the world. With this, you can normally block yourself between about 6 months to 5 years. So again, it's very effective, and it makes sure that you're not slipping through gaps and going to different operators. Gamban, they offer blocking tools to help you device block sites. Gamcare, they have a lot of stuff. So they have a partnership with TalkBan, and this is giving people the ability to talk physically and discuss their issues. And also, if people don't want to physically have that conversation, it allows them where they've got forums where they can chat as well. So they're the ones which I think there's quite a wide ranging of different methods you can take, whether they're enforcing it with your bank, whether they're taking on issues, dealing with issues yourself, or the things which operators are offering.
All right, John, maybe you can add to that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good list of places to reach out to for help. And I think again, it's maybe using the tools that you've got with whatever operator you're placing your bets with. So before you get into the emotion of that festive season of placing your bets, if you lose or maybe even you win, you have a bigger emotional burst, right, to follow up with a bet. But if you can use the tools you've got to set limits when you're nice and clear-headed before you get into betting, then I think that's a good way to make use of the facilities you've got.
All right, I think last year we did a research about how to bypass these filters, by the way, for Gamban and stuff like that. Then we were scrutinized by everybody. Why did you do it? We did it because we wanted to show that people are doing that. So even though they are using this type of filters, sometimes they are bypassing it, like VPNs and stuff like that. We did a whole list. So it was something that for which we had received many complaints for doing it, because we are teaching gambling addicts how to bypass these, but it's out there. It's the truth. So if it's used, then it's probably a good reaction for people to see how it's been. So again, Adam, maybe you can share some information about how families can talk to each other about responsible gambling. John, you can jump in on this as well. What's the deal?
Yeah, I think the first thing that people really need to sort of get set in their minds is that gambling it's for entertainment outlet. It's not to be used for a money generating. Well, small percentage of people do it, but it's not for money generating. So I think the best thing, which I always say, is playing on a gambling site, whether it's sports betting or casino, treat it as it's an expense. So it's like going to a restaurant or going to a cinema or, that type of stuff. So it's look at it that sense of, if you were going to go to the pub tonight, how much would you think was accepting for you to spend? Discuss it with the family. This is what you're going to do. And I think it's entertainment now. So it needs to be discussed and treated in the same way of if you were saying to your wife or to your husband, I'm going out, it'd be like, well, you've got £100 or £50 or whatever it be. And I think that's really where gambling needs to be sort of discussed in exactly the same avenues.
Yeah, we all know that the pop thing doesn't work like that. John.
And I think it's important when, there's family discussions around it, for people not to be judgmental and push the person that's got a problem into a defensive position, right? It's good to be open and talk about it. So, you know, everything Adam said there about thinking of it as an expense, I think is a real healthy mindset to adopt. You know, and over Christmas, there is such a wealth of things to do. You know, maybe it's good practice. I think we started doing this in our family because everyone just spends all day on their laptop and phones, even over the holidays, is to lock all the phones away on Christmas Day and force people to play naff family games and have conversations.
All right, that's a good start right there. So, John, sticking with you, what are the anticipated future developments in facial recognition technology in the gambling sector, and what challenges might these advancements pose, both for operators and customers?
So, as I said before, I think facial recognition technology is inevitably just going to become a part of everyday life. So, it's best for operators and players to lean into the technology and work out how we can make it do really good things for the sector and for players. So it's already incredibly accurate, but I think that will continue to improve, especially in areas like age recognition or spotting facial spoofing, where people are trying to get past facial technology with photos. And I think regarding the future, this combination of facial recognition with real-time data linked into a sort of operator's data lake can drive incredibly deep insight. And I think with predictive AI, you can then take personalization to a whole new level. And that's what's really lighting the fire in the bellies of our developers in Belgrade. The idea you can create a really unique, personalized experience for customers without the customer having to do anything. I think that's going to be a game changer. And we talk about challenges. It'll be a huge challenge for an operator if their competitor has that type of personalized experience and they don't. So, you know, our data team are really working away at bringing that to our tree platform in the near future. And I think some of the challenges, you know, our system only requires a minimum investment, but for sure, I think reducing costs for large scale operations, particularly around infrastructure, is going to be a challenge. You know, we're exploring novel D&M models that should enable it to be much more cost effective for operators that require thousands of cameras across their retail estate, for example, to make it a more sensible investment for them. And ultimately, I think the challenge is going to be for players and operators to accept and adopt the new reality and to make it work for you.
Wow, this is the first time that we do a session and it took 40 minutes and no mention of AI. This was usually it's around the 10th, 15 minutes that somebody approaches the AI subject, but now it took 40, which is something new. So it seems that AI is starting to disappear by the mid of December, and probably the subject will kickstart again in January. So, Adam, what are some of the tips for creating a festive atmosphere that doesn't revolve around gambling? Like John said earlier, like putting away your phones and laptops and
to be honest, John, if you can do that with my daughter, I'll be more than welcome to have you around on Christmas Day. That's not a problem at all. I think it's like anything, isn't it? It's trying to spend as much time with the family and enjoy the holidays together. I know what we try and do is, to John's point, we try and get out the board games. My nana, she's actually been banned from Jenga because she just blatantly cheats. She'd be holding it and we'd be like, stop holding it. And she's like, I'm not holding it. So yeah, it's trying to play those things where you can have fun and laugh. You know, we get the Nintendo Switch out and go for walks. And again, it's trying to, you know, for the majority of the year, we're running around crazy, especially in the spaces that we work. We do a lot of traveling around the world. So I think it's a great time to try and switch off, maybe not completely lock away devices, but maybe limit the times that you have on it, get the Christmas movies on, and maybe be allowed to watch the Premiership on Boxing Day and things like that. But yeah, I think it's trying to just sort of recover, relax, enjoy time with the family, because we know once January comes, it all starts again.
All right, so now I have your plans for Christmas, so it's much easier. You don't need to ask the question about what are your plans for the holidays. So, guys, gentlemen, thank you so much for this great session. And I hope you have happy holidays, some time to relax and kickstart 2024 with much more energy. If you have some parting words, maybe say hello to someone, just go ahead.
Well, I'd just like to wish everyone out there a happy Christmas in the weeks ahead and a fantastic 2024.
Yeah, exactly the same. Everyone have a great Christmas. Don't do anything we wouldn't do, and speak to you again in the new year.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for our audience for joining us. This has been the last episode this year because next week we are going to take a break, and we will be back in January with the first edition of the Weekly Huddle for 2024, where we talk about events in 2024. And this has been it. Thank you so much.